Amanda, let me know when everyone's here and we'll.
Okay. Okay, Boyd, I think we're good.
Okay. We're at 5 o'clock here, 5:01. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we do have a quorum, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking time out to be here today. Our only item of business today is the conditional use permit for Red Drum Development. And John, would you like to do your presentation on that first, or?
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay.
Amanda, do you want to share screen or?
Yeah, you should have that option.
Okay. Bear with me a second here. Is everybody seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a conditional use permit. Staff report was done June 21st, 2021. The applicant is Red Drum Development LLC. The property owner is Fly Rod Holdings LLC. The property location is 1585 East Main Street, Sylva, and the PIN number is 7641718186. The current property is Business 3. And we are reviewing the ordinance section for the request would be the conditional use permit section of the ordinance. The description of the request, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow for an automotive service business in the B3 district. Currently, the town of Sylva allows for commercial, artistic, manufacturing, and repair activities in the B3 district only when a conditional use permit is issued by the town Board of Adjustment, Board of Commissioners. The background is that the subject property is 0.72 total acres and is bordered by professional offices to the south. And on this parcel, Smoky Mountain High School property to the east. To the north is a gas station, and across Highway 107 is Bryson Farm Supply. This is at the intersection of Jones Street and Highway 107. As you can see, the subject property is highlighted in yellow. This property is currently vacant. The existing structures have been removed. The previous business, as you may remember, was a convenience store / gas station, which has been totally razed. That's happened in the last 6 months or so. And you may remember that it sat vacant for a number of years before that happened. Site findings, or staff findings rather, the applicant has submitted sufficient documents for a conditional use permit review. In this case, it's the site plan. Jump down to that. I'm going to jump ahead here, Boyd, and go to the, because obviously those are the tenants that you have to answer as a board. So I'm going to move ahead to section 38-153, required public purpose for assigning conditions to a conditional use permit. Traffic safety, congestion, and visibility is the first standard in that section. Staff's response is the proposed use would be an automotive service business. This business type is expected to have deliveries and removal of products associated with vehicle maintenance and repair, which would be miscellaneous fluids, etc., as well as related customer traffic. Location of this property and ingress egress of the driveway would not appear to burden local traffic or vehicle movements, as Highway 107 and Jones Street intersection is signalized. So this intersection of 107 and Jones Street is a signalized intersection. Parking consistent with 3877, which is the parking schedule in the ordinance. This proposed development will need to comply with the town of Sylva's parking schedule, which will be reviewed at the time of final site construction plan submittal. Currently, with the use type that is proposed, with the number of bays that are proposed on this particular concept plan, there are not enough parking spaces, parking stalls shown. And that is including the queue for the proposed bays and parking in the bay for repairs. So the applicant or the design professional I'll be working with them closely to achieve that. They do have the room to get there. It's just a matter of, that being shown on the final site construction plans and make sure that works. The other issue I had with that parking is this does not work in terms of a parking spot right in front of the dumpster enclosures is not only a hazard, but could be blocked whenever there is the pickup of the trash. Number 3, adequate vegetative or structural buffers between residential uses and all other uses. The proposed commercial use of an automotive service business will be adjacent to other commercial uses to the north and south of the subject property, and with Smoky Mountain High School to the east. This proposed development will need to comply with the town of Sylva's landscape regulations, including interior plantings and buffers along the property lines, which will be reviewed at the time of final site construction plans. The buffers are shown on this plan. Here and here, they're along the side property line and the rear property line. We would be doing street trees along, the ordinance requires street trees along the main right of way. So we would be doing that on the final site construction plans. And the interior plantings are lacking on this plan. Again, it's one of those things I will have to fine tune with the design professional. There are specific standards in the ordinance for interior plantings when it comes to interior parking and around the building. Number 4, adequate space for traffic ingress egress. An existing driveway currently provides ingress egress, which will become a one-way entrance, approximately 20 feet in width. That's right off of Highway 107 here. The access on Jones Street will be two-way and offer safety of a signalized intersection. So the ingress egress to Jones Street is the safe movement. So going to Jones and to the signalized intersection would be where most of the traffic will be coming from and to. Number 5, adequate stormwater drainage. This proposed development will need to comply with the town of Sylva stormwater regulations, which will be reviewed at the time of final site construction plan submittal. Again, typically on concept plans, we don't get that deep in the weeds with final stormwater design. As you all know from previous conditional use application submittals and reviews, that the town does have a stormwater regulations in their ordinance, which will be applied on those final site construction plans. Number 6, adequate landscaping along all public roads. Of course, this proposed development will need to comply with the town's landscape regulations. Again, in the front portions of this property on Highway 107 and Jones Street would be street tree plantings. Number 7 of those standards, that signs consistent with Article 4, which are the sign regulations, be designed, placed, illuminated, and landscaped in harmony with the adjoining properties. And of course, any proposed signs will comply with the town sign regulations. Number 8, that outside lighting is screened, turned off, or directed away from residential neighborhoods. Per NC building code, they would require building lighting on the outside, the exterior of the building. Obviously, in this concept plan, no outdoor lighting is shown in the parking lot. Number 9, that commercial machinery and activities producing noise are conducted within the confines of the enclosed building. And the applicant has stated that all business activities will be conducted within the proposed structure. You all are probably familiar with this type of activity. You pull your vehicle into the building, they do the oil change inside, and all equipment and tools and so forth are housed in there. Number 10, that the design of the proposed building and its use shall be consistent with the surrounding character of the neighborhood and purposes of the zoning district. The proposed structure will need to comply with the architectural standards set forth in the town of Sylva zoning ordinance, and will be reviewed at the time of final site or architectural plan submittal rather. As you know, there are architectural standards that are applied to new buildings and redeveloped buildings in the town, and there are specific siding material standards and offsets, et cetera, that we look at for new buildings. Staff recommendations that all overnight storage of vehicles shall be parked within the proposed structure only. No outdoor storage of materials, which would be equipment, oil containers, et cetera, shall be allowed on this property unless the applicant screens the storage area with an opaque fence and not visible from the public. So an area that would store used oils and so forth to be picked up. Sometimes it's in a tank underground through the the design of the site and the building. Other cases it's above ground and it's picked up by a vendor. In either case, that would need to be screened. The third recommendation from staff is all required landscape buffers will be designed, installed in accordance with the town's landscape requirements. Number 4, that all proposed signage will be in accordance with the town sign regulations, and that the final site design will need to comply with the town of Sylva stormwater design standards. That's my staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. What questions does anyone have? Yeah, Gregory.
Oh,
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. Maybe this isn't under our purview, but I was just curious, since this site used to be a gasoline station or fill-up station, have it's preparation, they raised the buildings, but did they deal with the underground tanks?
Whenever a gas station ceases to or goes out of business, that's a state mandated thing. They do have to remove the tanks immediately. The tanks don't sit there and rot. They are removed through state permitting, et cetera. So that's obviously not a town or a local building code thing.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions, comments, or?
I guess I have another question then. The parking then would be for employees or for people who might be waiting in line or waiting to get serviced? Since no overnight cars would be left.
Yeah, typically when we have this type of business typically would not have overnight parking. Sometimes in mechanic shops, typical, automotive repair, you would have that. And we would ask that those vehicles be screened from the public right away because you don't know what condition that repair is in. Mm-hmm. In this case, this is more of an express, maintenance type of use where you're pulling in and pulling out and leaving. Very rarely do vehicles have to stay overnight. If they do, we are just asking that they do stay inside the building and not parked on the outside. Again, the type of business that this is, they wouldn't have the car in parts. It wouldn't be out in the parking lot and on jacks and wheels off and all that kind of thing, with the exception of maybe a quick, I don't know if they do, tire repair, flat tires or something like that, but rarely do you see that in this type of business model.
John, I had a question. You mentioned a couple of deficiencies in the preliminary drawing, and of course it's preliminary, but the parking and some of the landscape, you would be working with them as the plan develops to make sure those are done properly?
Absolutely, yes. So obviously in final site construction plans is where we would really hash that out because they don't have a permit from me yet for zoning on this. The conditional use permit, as you know, is just the first step, in the direction of of securing that building permit, zoning permit, et cetera. So obviously they'd have to cross the hurdle with me on final site construction plans for parking schedule, final landscaping, building architecture, et cetera. So at that final review, I'm throwing the complete ordinance at it and, drilling down on stormwater and everything else that would apply.
But you don't see any problem with having enough space to cover those needs?
No, they have certainly enough space, and if they don't, they might have to shrink the building. But at the very least, they've got, by my estimation, for what they need to do, they can get there.
Okay. What other questions or comments might we have?
John, I'm assuming that the applicant has reviewed the latest R5600 design plans and seen how the proposed right-of-way would relate to their plans.
They did. So it is in here on this plan. Hopefully my screen is still shared. This right here, Rose, is the proposed right-of-way
Okay.
right here. So all the new design is back off of, out of the DOT's proposed taking.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from anyone on the board? Okay, and Amanda, I'm sorry, you said that we had someone here from representing the company.
Yes, you have 3 individuals. You can scroll down on the side of your screen on the bar and see them. See, we have Dave Braun, Samuel Costello, and there's one more, I'm not sure.
There's a Baker Bell here.
Hey, guys. Thank you all for your
Okay.
time.
Okay. Do you all have any comments or anything you would like to make?
I think it's a pretty straightforward project. Just one thing just to keep in mind on the parking. And I think our civil Dave Braun has communicated with John in the past on this. Is so our tenant, they'll have about 4 employees on staff at any time, and then I think what's shown on this plan is 7 parking spaces, but the 1 parking space as kind of like auxiliary parking in front of the dumpster. And then the idea is that with 4 employees on staff, this kind of use, people generally don't get out of their cars. So you drive your car up, you go into the building, you get your oil changed, and then you drive on and leave. And so it's not a parking intensive use. And so one of the things we've talked with John about, or I believe our civil has talked with John about in the past, is using having the stacking for entrance into the bays to count towards the Sylva's parking requirement.
Okay. The queue to get into one of the bays.
That's right. And so you functionally, our client actually have another one of these operations currently in town. That operation has about 7 parking spaces. And so our thought is that 7 actual static parking spaces would be sufficient for our use, given that there's only going to be 4 employees. And then if there's 3 bays. And so if it's highly unlikely more than 3 people would need to park their cars and get out and hang out in the quick loop parking lot. So our thought is that like 7 static spaces will be sufficient. And then we would use the stacking lanes or the stacking spaces in order to enter the bays as parking spaces, as sort of non-static parking spaces in order to meet the town of Sylva's parking requirement.
So the way I'm looking at this is you have 3 bays. So you'd have a space, if each one of those bays were taken, you would have 3 cars inside the building, and then you'd have 3 stacked behind that. Beyond the 3 stacked, it'd be difficult to have a line beyond that with the vehicle behind that one that's in the bay. So
That's right.
You have 6 there, and then you'd have the spaces. So we had the numbers could get there. We just need to tweak it on the final plan to make sure that works. And if I need to go to an auto turn with the engineer, we can do that. But I'm not seeing you're getting more than one behind the vehicle in the bay because you won't have enough places. You won't be able to pass. In follow up to that, as a footnote, please understand that the snappy loop that's currently in operation, that was existing prior to this ordinance being in place. So it's apples and oranges in terms of what the business is. If memory serves me, that's a 2-bay shop, not a 3-bay. I think they've got maybe one that's not, I can't remember. I think that's been a while since I've been in there. I know for sure they've got 2. They may have like I can't remember if it was just like a garage bay, perhaps. I can't remember if it is 3. But there's, regardless of that, the parking schedule didn't exist back then when that building was put in and for the use.
Right, no, 100%. So I think the thought would be we'd have the seven static parking spaces on the south side of the property, and then be 3 cars inside of the building, then 3 cars
In the queue.
in the queue, and then we're happy to have our civil Dave work with you on making sure that that all works from a turning perspective.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Customers waiting for their cars to be finished would have it inside the building waiting area?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Comments or questions? Paige, did you have any comments or anything or questions?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay, if there are no other questions, last call for questions or comments before we move ahead. Okay, if there are none, let's move ahead, and what we need to do to approve the conditional use permit. And again, as a reminder, we're an advisory board to the actual adjustments board, which is the town of Sylva board. We will, what our results here will move forward as a recommendation to them. So we will need.
Real quick before you get into that.
Yes.
Alan's going to have to recuse because he works for the engineering company. Just want to get that out there that he won't be voting, or that wouldn't count.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, we talked about that.
Okay. We have 4 questions. We have to, as a board, vote on each one individually. Whether we, if all 4 of those pass, this will move forward to the adjustments board, the town board. So we'll start with the first one here. And the question is that the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed, and development according to the plan is submitted and approved. Do we have questions, comments on that?
My only suggestion might be that customers exiting and re-entering their cars, that flow and in and out of the building, whether it's the top or the bottom, might be more carefully indicated, so there's no risk of confusion about where cars are coming from and going to as customers get back into their cars or leave their cars.
Right, that's a good point, since that is a turn in from 107 there, right in front of there. So maybe a crosswalk indicator or something like that over to the parking.
Yeah,
Or
pedestrian indicator, something like that. Yeah.
something. That's a good point. Okay. Okay. And also we can, I know we're in the middle of this question, but We typically submit it using any of these suggestions we have that will be forwarded along with our recommendation to the board. So, any other comments, questions on that? Okay, hearing none. If we'll vote on that one as to whether we all agree with that question or not. And Amanda, will you do the roll for that, please?
I need a motion to approve tenant one.
Oh, okay. Can I entertain a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second. Okay.
Okay, motion in a second.
Okay, Jeffrey,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Okay, so we will move on to the second one. The use meets all required conditions and specifications. Comments, questions on that? And I guess that's more where would fit in what I was mentioning, the suggestions like a safe crossing from the building to the parking areas and the suggestions that John had on his report. Those would be presented along with our recommendation to the board. Any other comments, questions? If none on that question, could I entertain a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the second one, the use meets all required conditions and specifications. Amanda, if you would call the roll for that one.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Okay. And on to the third. The use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or in the alternative, the use is a public necessity. Comments, questions on that? Okay. Hearing none, could I entertain a motion on that question?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion in a second. And Amanda, please.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Okay. And the final is the location and character of the proposed use will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and in general conformity with the development of the town and its environs. Okay, questions or comments on that? Okay, hearing none, may I entertain a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. We don't have a lot of choices here.
Yeah,
Someone's gotta
we
go.
worked out a rotation, but
Right.
We're trying to share the joy, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Amanda, if you would do that one, please.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Russ,
yes.
Okay, so all four pass, which means that it will move from our committee to the adjustment board. And
Boyd.
yes,
We need to clarify and actually state out if you want to add additional conditions or
Okay.
recommendations to
okay.
the application.
Okay. I believe we normally take the staff recommendations. Do I need to
Correct.
reread those?
No, it just
Okay.
if you had additional, you were talking
Okay. Jeffrey, would you like to state how you would like the parking pedestrian safety issued?
It won't be a final language, but I guess my sense was that on the final plan, it indicates where customer entrance and egress into the building is in relation to the flow of traffic and the parking, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So some information about that.
So to indicate safe passage from the building to the parking spaces.
And to their cars or from their cars, that kind of.
Okay. Is everyone good with that? Any?
John, is that something that will come just in your general application of the ordinances, or does it need to be a specific?
Well, that's not really part of, it's not really part of the parking schedule. Yeah, it's probably best to make that a condition
Okay.
of the approval, which would
Okay.
be, the safe, a safe transition from customer parking to customer entrance.
Okay, so worded like that as a safe transition will be okay.
Yes.
Is that good with you, Jeffrey?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. Was there anything else I missed on there? Any other suggestions anyone had? Okay. If not, I believe that concludes our business. Am I missing anything else, Amanda?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, that being our only item of business today, can I entertain a motion for adjournment?
Moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second,
Okay. All those, well, Amanda, if you'll do the roll, please.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Rose,
yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Russ.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.